Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. Today we're taking a deep dive into Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 14, the Qibla.
The Qibla.
Yeah, it's a fascinating collection of sayings and practices of the Prophet Muhammad that reveal a lot about how even the smallest actions can reflect a deep spiritual awareness. It's all about Ihsan, that beautiful concept of striving for excellence in everything we do, as if we're always in the presence of the divine.
You know what's fascinating about this book is that it doesn't just lay down strict rules.
Right.
It actually reveals a lot of flexibility and nuance within Islamic teachings.
Right. Like, take the idea of facing the Qibla, the direction Muslims face during prayer.
Yeah.
It's considered sacred, but there are seemingly contrasting views on how to treat this direction, even during very private moments.
Exactly. You see, there's a hadith where Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, a close companion of the Prophet, narrates that the Prophet instructed not to face the Qibla while relieving oneself.
Interesting.
This emphasizes the respect and reverence Muslims have for the Qibla, which connects us to the holiest site in Islam.
So it's like, even in private, there's this awareness of the sacred.
Yes.
It's almost like an extension of the concept of Ihsan, bringing that sense of excellence and mindfulness even to actions that most people wouldn't consider religious.
Precisely. But here's where it gets interesting. There's another account from Abdullah ibn Umar, another companion who actually witnessed the Prophet relieving himself while facing the Bayt al-Maqdis, which was the Qibla at that time.
Wait, so the Prophet himself didn't always follow that rule?
Uh-huh.
That's surprising.
It is, isn't it? And this seeming contradiction actually highlights the importance of context and intent in Islamic teachings.
Okay.
While respecting the Qibla is essential, these teachings also acknowledge human needs and limitations.
Right.
Sometimes practicality and necessity take precedence, and that doesn't necessarily diminish the reverence for the Qibla.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties back to Ihsan.
Yes.
It's not about blindly following rigid rules.
Exactly.
It's about understanding the spirit behind the guidelines and striving to embody that spirit in every situation.
Exactly. And this flexibility isn't limited to just this one instance. It pops up again and again when we look at the guidelines surrounding the Qibla.
Okay, so tell me more about these other examples. What else did you find that surprised you?
Well, there's a hadith where the Prophet is seen scraping off spittle from the wall of the Qibla in the mosque and instructing people not to spit in front of them while praying. It might seem like a minor action,
Yeah.
but even this seemingly insignificant act is addressed in Islamic teachings.
So even something as small as spitting has a place within the framework of Ihsan. I'm curious, what's the reasoning behind this particular guideline?
It's all about maintaining a sense of purity and respect, not just in our hearts, but also in our physical surroundings, especially during prayer.
Right.
The act of spitting towards the Qibla, even if unintentional, could be seen as disrespectful, so the Prophet discouraged it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it shows how Ihsan isn't just about grand gestures. It's about bringing that mindfulness and reverence to every aspect of our lives, even the seemingly mundane.
Precisely. And it's not just the Prophet who emphasized this. We also see Aisha, the Prophet's wife, supporting this practice.
Oh?
She narrated that she would place a container near the Prophet's bed so he could spit into it if needed,
Oh, wow.
ensuring that even during the night, the sanctity of the Qibla was maintained.
It's really interesting to see how even these seemingly small actions were given so much importance.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes how Islam views every aspect of life as potentially sacred.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of the Qibla. Let's talk about the historical event of the Qibla shifting from Jerusalem to Mecca. It's a pivotal moment that reveals a lot about the Muslim community's understanding of Ihsan.
Yeah, I remember learning about this in school. It always struck me as a huge change. Imagine suddenly having to pray in a completely different direction.
I know.
What was the reasoning behind this shift?
Well, according to Islamic tradition, the Prophet initially received revelation to pray towards Jerusalem. He and his followers did so for about 16 months after arriving in Medina. However, the Prophet yearned to face the Kaaba, the house built by Abraham, which held a deep spiritual significance in the hearts of the early Muslims.
Right.
Eventually, the revelation came instructing them to change the direction of prayer to Mecca, and this occurred 2 months before the Battle of Badr.
So it was about returning to the origin, aligning themselves more closely with the lineage of Abraham.
Yes,
It must have been a powerful moment for those early Muslims.
absolutely. Abdullah ibn Umar, the same companion who witnessed the Prophet facing Jerusalem, recounts that the Prophet was leading a prayer in the mosque of Banu Salama when the revelation came to change the direction.
Wow.
Imagine being in that prayer and suddenly the entire congregation shifts to face a new direction.
Wow, what a powerful visual. It speaks volumes about their willingness to submit to divine will.
Exactly. And this act of changing the Qibla embodies Ihsan in a profound way.
Hmm.
It wasn't simply a matter of following a new rule. It was about demonstrating a deep understanding of the purpose of prayer to connect with the divine.
Right.
They were willing to adapt and evolve their practice to align themselves more perfectly with that
That
purpose.
makes a lot of sense. So they weren't just blindly following orders.
Right.
They understood the deeper significance of the change and embraced it wholeheartedly.
Exactly. And this highlights the importance of intention and sincerity in Islamic practice. It's not just about performing the outward actions.
Hmm.
It's about aligning our hearts with the divine will.
So I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
It seems like every guideline related to the Qibla, whether it's about facing it during certain actions or even shifting its direction, ultimately points back to this idea of cultivating a state of Ihsan.
You're absolutely right. And this focus on intention and sincerity even extends to the practicalities of determining the exact direction of the Qibla.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm curious, how did they figure out which way to face back then, especially for people who were traveling or living far from Mecca?
Well, it wasn't always easy. And that's where the flexibility within Islamic teachings comes into play again. Umar ibn al-Khattab, a close companion of the Prophet and later a caliph, said something quite insightful about this.
Oh, okay.
He said that as long as someone is facing the general direction of the Kaaba, the precise angle isn't as crucial.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it wasn't about achieving perfect accuracy.
Exactly. The emphasis was on sincerity and effort. Imagine a traveler in a new land trying to determine the direction of prayer. They might not have access to sophisticated tools or knowledge of the local geography.
Right.
This teaching offers them comfort and reassurance, prioritizing their heartfelt connection with the divine over meticulous calculations.
That's a really beautiful example of the compassion and understanding within Islamic teachings. It's not about burdening people with impossible demands. It's about recognizing their limitations and honoring their sincere efforts.
And that, I think, perfectly encapsulates the spirit of Ihsan. It's not about achieving some unattainable level of perfection. It's about striving to do our best with sincerity and a pure heart in every aspect of our lives.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the depth and beauty of these teachings. It's not just about following rules.
Right.
It's about cultivating a way of being, a constant awareness of the divine presence that permeates everything we do.
I'm glad to hear that. And this is just the beginning of our exploration. There's so much more to uncover in this book about how the Qibla acts as a tangible symbol of our connection to the divine and how it guides us towards a life imbued with Ihsan.
Well, I'm definitely intrigued to learn more. But for now, I think it's time to take a pause and let our listener absorb all these fascinating insights.
Okay.
We'll be back soon to delve deeper into the world of the Qibla and Ihsan.
Sounds good. You know, it's fascinating how the Qibla is more than just a direction.
Right.
It's a tangible symbol that helps us connect with something much larger than ourselves, a reminder of our spiritual center.
You're right. It's like having a physical anchor for something that can feel very abstract sometimes.
Exactly. And this idea of the Qibla as a symbol extends beyond just the direction itself. It's reflected in the spaces we associate with it, like the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. Our sources actually highlight the special significance of this particular mosque.
Oh, that's right. I remember reading about how the Prophet himself helped build that mosque.
Yes.
It must have held a very special place in the hearts of those early Muslims.
Absolutely. And there's a hadith where the Prophet compares praying in his mosque to 1,000 prayers in any other mosque except for the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, which of course holds its own unique significance as the holiest site in Islam.
1,000 prayers. That's a pretty powerful statement. What do you think is the deeper meaning behind that comparison?
I think it speaks to the profound connection Muslims feel with the Prophet Muhammad. His mosque wasn't just a place of worship. It was a place where his presence was felt most strongly.
Yeah.
It was a place where the community gathered, not just to pray, but to learn from him, to seek his guidance, to be inspired by his example. So praying in that space, surrounded by those echoes of his life and teachings, held a special spiritual weight.
That makes sense. It's like the mosque itself became a symbol of the Prophet's legacy, a tangible reminder of his teachings and the community he built.
Exactly. And this idea of spaces holding spiritual significance ties back to Ihsan in a really interesting way. It's not just about our personal actions, it's also about how we treat those spaces, the reverence we bring to them. We see this not only in the Prophet's mosque, but also in the guidelines for maintaining purity and respect within any mosque or prayer space.
So it's about extending that sense of excellence and mindfulness to our surroundings as well.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that the spaces we inhabit can also reflect our inner state, our connection to the divine. And speaking of spaces, our sources also delve into a topic that I know is often debated within Muslim communities, the question of women attending mosques.
Right. There are definitely differing opinions on this.
Yeah.
What does our book have to say about it?
Well, it's interesting because we see multiple perspectives presented. On the one hand, the Prophet encouraged the participation of women in communal worship.
Okay.
There's a hadith where he explicitly instructs not to forbid women from mosques, emphasizing the importance of inclusivity in Islamic practice.
So the Prophet himself was in favor of women attending mosques. That seems pretty clear-cut.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then we also see Aisha, the Prophet's wife, expressing concern about potential distractions that could arise from women attending mosques.
Hmm.
This highlights the need for maintaining the sanctity of worship and ensuring a focused environment for prayer.
So it's like a balancing act between inclusivity and maintaining that sense of reverence and focus.
Exactly, and I think that's where the concept of Ihsan comes in again. It's about striving for excellence in both aspects.
Right.
It's about creating spaces that are welcoming and inclusive, where women feel comfortable participating in communal worship, while also ensuring that the environment is conducive to deep prayer and connection with the divine.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about choosing one side over the other. It's about finding that balance, that point where both values are upheld.
And this isn't just a theoretical discussion. We see these principles embodied in real-life examples. The story of Atika bint Zaid, the wife of Umar ibn al-Khattab, is a great example of this.
Oh, I'm not familiar with her story. Tell me more.
Atika was a woman of strong faith who deeply valued communal worship.
Okay.
We learn that she would persistently seek permission from her husband to attend the mosque, emphasizing her personal need for spiritual connection. This highlights the importance of women's agency in matters of faith. They're not passive bystanders. They have their own spiritual needs and aspirations and should be empowered to pursue them.
It's interesting that she had to persistently seek permission from her husband. It makes you think about the societal context of that time and the challenges women may have faced in expressing their religious needs.
Absolutely. And her story is a reminder that the struggle for inclusivity and equal access to spiritual growth is an ongoing one.
It's inspiring to see how she stood up for her right to participate in communal worship. It speaks volumes about her commitment to her faith.
It really does. And her determination reflects a beautiful manifestation of Ihsan. It's about striving for excellence, not just in our individual actions, but also in creating a society where everyone, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to connect with the divine in a meaningful way.
It sounds like Atika's story is a lesson in perseverance and a reminder that sometimes striving for Ihsan means challenging the status quo and advocating for what's right.
Absolutely. And her story isn't just a historical anecdote. It's a call to action for us today to continue creating spaces where all individuals feel welcomed and empowered to participate in their faith communities.
This deep dive is really revealing the multifaceted nature of Ihsan. It's not just about individual piety, it's about community inclusivity and social justice.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about striving for excellence in every aspect of our lives, both personal and communal, and recognizing that our actions, our choices, and even the spaces we create all have the potential to reflect a state of Ihsan.
So it's about recognizing that Ihsan is not a destination, but an ongoing journey, a constant striving towards something bigger than ourselves.
Beautifully said. And that journey takes us beyond just the individual. It extends to our communities, our societies, and even the way we interact with the world around us.
This conversation has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
What stands out to you as the most important takeaway from our exploration of the Qibla and Ihsan so far?
For me, it's the realization that Ihsan isn't just about outward actions or rituals. It's about cultivating a state of awareness, a constant striving to align our hearts and minds with the divine will. And that striving isn't about achieving some unattainable level of perfection. It's about showing up every day in every situation with sincerity and a genuine desire to do our best.
That's a powerful reminder. And I think it's something our listener can really connect with. We're all on this journey of trying to live more consciously, more intentionally, more in alignment with our values. And Ihsan offers a beautiful framework for doing just that.
Yeah.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
Oh, absolutely. We could spend hours unpacking the layers of meaning embedded in these teachings about the Qibla and its connection to Ihsan.
I know. And it's amazing how a concept that seems so simple on the surface,
Right.
the direction you face when you pray,
Yeah.
can lead to such profound insights about how we live our lives.
It reminds me that spirituality isn't confined to specific rituals or places.
Okay.
It's woven into the fabric of our everyday existence.
Exactly. And speaking of weaving,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how all these different threads we've been discussing come together. What's the big picture here?
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways for our listener?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that the Qibla is more than just a physical direction. It symbolizes our connection to the divine, a constant reminder of our spiritual center, even when we're engaged in the most mundane activities.
Right. Like even those private moments we talked about earlier. It's about
Yes,
bringing that awareness, that sense of the sacred, into every aspect of our lives.
exactly. And the guidelines surrounding the Qibla,
Yeah.
from how we face it to how we behave in its presence,
Right.
all point towards a deeper understanding of Ihsan.
Mm.
It's about striving for excellence in every action, big or small, recognizing that even seemingly insignificant acts can be imbued with spiritual significance.
So it's not just about grand gestures or elaborate rituals.
Right.
It's about those small everyday choices we make,
Exactly.
the way we interact with the world around us,
Yes,
the intentions we bring to our actions.
precisely. And we saw how flexibility and compassion are woven into these teachings,
Oh, yeah.
acknowledging the importance of context, intent, and individual circumstances. It's not about rigid adherence to rules,
Mhm.
but about understanding the spirit behind those rules and striving to embody that spirit in a way that's authentic to our own lives.
Right. Like the flexibility in determining the exact direction of the Qibla when you're traveling,
Hmm.
or the understanding that sometimes practical considerations might require adjustments to how we approach certain guidelines.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between striving for excellence and recognizing our own limitations and approaching those challenges with compassion and understanding, both for ourselves and for others.
And that, I think, brings us back to that powerful image of the Qibla shifting from Jerusalem to Mecca.
Yes.
It wasn't just about following a new rule. It was about demonstrating a willingness to adapt and evolve while staying true to the essence of their faith.
Absolutely. And that act of aligning themselves more perfectly with the divine, well, even when it required a major change, that's a profound example of Hisan in action.
It's inspiring to see how those early Muslims navigated those changes with such grace and understanding.
It is. It is. And it's a valuable lesson for us today as we face our own challenges and strive to live lives that reflect the spirit of Ihsan.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the most important question our listeners should be asking themselves?
I think the most important question is this. How can we bring this awareness of the divine presence, this striving for excellence, into every aspect of our own lives? How can we make Ihsan not just a concept we study, but a way of being that permeates everything we do?
That's a powerful question, and I think it's one that will resonate with our listeners long after this episode is over.
Mm-hmm.
It's a call to action, an invitation to embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that Ihsan isn't a destination, but an ongoing process,
Right.
a constant striving towards something bigger than ourselves.
And that journey, like the Qibla itself, is a reminder that we're all connected to something larger than ourselves,
Hmm.
a source of guidance and inspiration that can lead us towards a life filled with meaning and purpose.
Beautifully said. And I hope our listener will take that sense of connection, that striving for excellence with them as they continue their own journey.
And with that, we'll leave you to ponder these ideas and discover your own echoes of Ihsan in the world around you. Until next time, may your journey be filled with blessings and insights.